Hi, welcome along to Eplw. I'm Joe and I've got Roz here with me. Now, if you didn't catch our first episode of Eplw on Sunday night, then there'll be a link to that in the description of this video. And what happened on that episode is that we got onto the subject of Chelsea and Frank Lampard, and Roz, well, he started having a bit of a rant really, but we had to cut him off. So I'm sorry about that, mate.
No worries. Well, that's what we're doing today, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I just thought we'd give you a chance to say your piece. Let's set the scene. What we were talking about on Sunday. Chelsea not in the greatest vein of form at the moment, and we were talking about Frank Lampard and how he's doing as Chelsea manager. Frank Lampard OBE. Ross, do you want to sort of pick up where you left off? What was your
Well,
main?
I mean, since that last episode, Chelsea have, of course, lost midweek game to Leicester. 2-0, I felt it could have been more, to be honest, if Leicester took a few more of their chances. And I'm just bored of this narrative at the moment where Frank Lampard gets all this sympathy. Everyone thinks that Lampard is doing a great job, but I don't think he necessarily is. Like I said, it's a narrative. When he came in, it was sort of the saviour. They had this transfer embargo, and he was picking up this poor Chelsea squad where he couldn't actually sign any players. Let's put that right, first of all. Sarri finished third in that season after he got sacked.
Yeah.
He won the Europa League, as you'll remember, as an Arsenal fan.
Oh,
And and he also got to another cup final. We got to the League Cup final. So 2 cup finals, finished third in the league. And they lost Eden Hazard. And that's what everyone kind of focuses on. He got 21 goals, I think, across the season. And don't get me wrong, that's a huge loss. But since that transfer embargo, Lampard and Chelsea have spent 200 and something million on some of the most sought after stars in Europe. They've bought Timo Werner, who's not quite doing it. He's young. They've bought Kai Havertz, who's not quite doing it. He's young. But I think when you actually look at the squad of talent, the pool of talent that Frank Lampard has to choose from, at some point you have to stop blaming the players, which seems to be what most Chelsea fans and pundits are kind of doing, and start looking at the man who's in charge, organising them. The fact is, Chelsea are a club that have built success year after year since Abramovich has come in, from being ruthless, from taking the best managers in world football and sacking them really harshly. They've sacked World Cup winners in Big Phil Scolari. They've sacked Champions League winners, multiple Champions League winners, although I don't think he necessarily was at the time, but in Carlo Ancelotti. And something I learned actually the other week when looking this up, Frank Lampard has a worse record than all but 2 of the managers that he played under at Chelsea.
yeah. Well, it's
Phil
always,
Scolari had a better record than him. Carlo Ancelotti has a better record than him. Andre Villas-Boas has a worse one, and Gus Hiddink in his second spell, which was only about 30 games anyway. Frank Lampard is not the right man for Chelsea.
I mean, when you say about the performances related to other managers, he's played 83 and he's won 43 of those, 52% win percentage, which compared to Jose Mourinho, his overall career, if you like, he's got to be the man you compare to, right? When we're talking Chelsea,
Fine. Yeah.
64% win rate, Jose Mourinho has maintained throughout his career. Arsene Wenger, just from my perspective, and just as a good barometer, in his whole time at Arsenal, his win rate was 58%, which is, again, better than Lampard's doing currently. I know it seems a bit harsh, Wenger had around 2 decades at Arsenal, but you wouldn't say Wenger did a great job overall in terms of
Yeah,
form.
if
Like,
you if you factor in those later years, for sure. The other thing is, if you take, I don't know, your average player in, say, the second half of Wenger's years and compare them to the talent that Chelsea have got now and that Frank Lampard has access to. I mean, Kovacic from Real Madrid, 40 million, right there. You've got N'Golo Kante, possibly the best defensive midfielder in world football right now. You've got Jorginho, who I know is a Sarri man who was brought in a bit hot and cold in the Prem, but still big money for a sought-after player who really did it in Italy. You've got Pulisic, who's, I think, a terrific player. You've got Timo Werner and Havertz, I mentioned earlier. Callum Hudson-Odoi, all these young English players like Mason Mount. And I actually think they've possibly got, I would say, probably the second best fullbacks in the league. Just behind Liverpool, obviously. But with Reece James and Ben Chilwell, again, it's this narrative thing where people are saying, oh, Frank Lampard's got it really hard. He's waiting for these players to gel. It takes time. But all those other managers didn't get time. They had to click instantly.
Is this a different Chelsea we're seeing then? Are they taking the time with Lampard because he's a club legend, because he's an all-round top bloke? Frank Lampard, OBE. I mean, he's been there 18 months, which is longer than most, Chelsea managers survive without winning anything. He's, what was I going to say? Club legend. He played over nearly 650 games for Chelsea, and he won a lot, 13 trophies in his time at Chelsea, and he played under lots of different managers. So you've got to think maybe it's just taking him longer to come round to what he wants to do, and they're kind of in the Champions League anyway, surviving. Are they okay, really? Is it worth investing? Is it worth sacking him now?
Well, in their last 8 games, he's lost 5. He's drawn 1, and he's won 2. The 2 being against a good West Ham team this season and a 10-man Fulham. Yeah, I think it is fair criticism, to be honest. I mean, and you were saying earlier about him sort of being a top bloke. I guess the reason it kind of riles me up so much is because he's, in all his interviews, he gets so defensive. He's kind of playing off this thing where it's harder for English managers. And, if they were like a fancy European manager, everyone would love them more.
Is there some truth in it? It is harder for English managers. Like, who's
is it hard for English managers? Wayne Rooney's just got his first job in the 2nd division for a big club that usually competes for the playoffs. Steven Gerrard walked in and got the Rangers job. Frank Lampard walked in and got the Chelsea job after failing at Derby the previous season. Have they actually earned their stripes to actually, I don't know if you remember, it was, this is kind of what turned me. It was when Sol Campbell was coming out and saying it's harder for black managers to get into management, and pointed to the likes of Frank Lampard at Chelsea and pointed to the likes of Steven Gerrard at Rangers. Lampard came out after that and he said, I've worked hard to get where I am now, and sort of made it all about him. He sort of said, oh yeah, I've worked really hard for my coaching badges. Well, every player in England that's over the age of 32 or 33 is working on their coaching badges. I think because he's such a big name player, because he's a club legend, he's got the Chelsea job, but because these kind of big name players that have played under the greats in management, they kind of get a free pass into a job that they wouldn't necessarily get. If you look at history, I can't think of too many great managers that were great players. Johan Cruyff, Pep Guardiola. Help me out.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
The best managers tend to be those that weren't top players, like your Wengers and your Klopps and your Mourinhos and even Brendan Rodgers. You got to put in that bracket, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm curious to know your opinion on where Frank Lampard's going wrong. Where's he going wrong at Chelsea? Why isn't it working? Let's not get too caught up in having a go at him personally. What's he doing wrong, and how can he improve it?
Well, every time I watch Chelsea, it seems like he doesn't know his starting formation. He doesn't know the right starting 11, or his best starting 11, if you like. As I was saying before, I think his fullbacks, are sorted. I think he's really fortunate with that. The whole Kepa debacle, I think Mendy looks fairly solid, certainly more confident than Kepa did, but that those positions kind of pick themselves. As soon as you get to the front three and you get to the midfield three that he's playing, and you get to your fullbacks, sorry, your centre halves even,
Yeah.
in particular the one that tends to go next to Thiago Silva, it was Rudiger against Leicester. I thought he was pretty crap, to be honest. But it's like Lampard isn't sticking with players. You're seeing great players like Christian Pulisic get in the squad or get in the starting lineup for about 3 games, and then all of a sudden he pulls him out, puts in Hudson-Odoi, got his first start the other night for a very long time. He's produced every time he's come on. Wasn't great against Leicester, to be fair. I think Olivier Giroud's always produced for Frank Lampard. He seems to be getting better with age.
I miss him.
And
I
but
miss
but
him so much.
and yeah, I think he seems sort of insistent on playing a double pivot, or at least I hope he's got past that now. But playing Jorginho with Kante, which didn't work for Sarri, and it was what got so many Chelsea fans on his back. And he sort of kept trying to find a place for Jorginho in that side. You've got N'Golo Kante. N'Golo Kante was probably the biggest factor in Leicester winning the league because he was as good as 2 midfielders. So they could afford to play 4-4-2, which meant they could put an extra man up top. You know, he does the work for 2 midfielders. You know, you haven't seen the best of Kante under Lampard, that's for sure.
What would you, out of interest, what would your sort of, sorry to throw this at you, but what would your Chelsea 11 be then? Given the current squad, no injuries, what's your Chelsea 11 that he should go with?
I personally wouldn't have dropped Fico Tomori. I think he had this problem where he did very well in the first season when he had youth playing and there wasn't as much expectancy. His club have spent all these millions of pounds and he feels forced to kind of put these players in. I would have kept the youth as a bit more of a backbone there. So I kept Tomori. You got to keep Mason Mount in there. In fairness, Lampard, I like what he's done with Mason Mount, dropping him a bit deeper. I think there's a real player in there. But I would just stick with these signings and these youth players and just give them 10 games in a row. You know, let them actually build, get a bit of chemistry. So I'd say James Chilwell, Mendy, Thiago Silva, Tomori.
So Mendy in goal, Chilwell left back, Tomori, Thiago Silva, and Reece James.
Reece James on the right.
Then,
then I'd have Kante holding, Mason Mount with Kai Havertz in the 10.
okay. So Mason Mount as an 8, Kai Havertz as a 10.
Yeah, that's it. And I would probably start Tammy Abraham and keep Olivier Giroud as this impact player off the bench. The wingers are probably the hardest to kind of. I think it was right to kind of drop Werner. I would probably go for now with Pulisic and Hudson-Odoi, and then gradually, as Werner starts to find his feet in English football, he's got to be on the left because he is a world-class player. He just needs a bit of time to adapt.
I mean, there's one other player we haven't mentioned yet, and that's Hakim Ziyech.
How did I forget Hakim Ziyech? God. Ziyech on the right, definitely. He's been kind of hot and cold, but when he's been hot, I mean, he's like pinging them all over the park. He's a top player. I was saying on the last show, I think he got Ajax to a Champions League semi-final. It links back to the Lampard thing, you know. If you look at the squad of players he's got, you have to at some point go, that's a good enough squad for top 4 easily. So the manager must be the problem. That's where I'm coming from with it.
What do you think it is? What's the barrier? Is he not getting the players on side? Are they doing what he wants them to do? Is he not doing that bit correctly, or is it the tactics?
I think it's that great players don't necessarily make great managers, so he doesn't know how to get the player. I'm sure they all love him, you know. I'm sure that he's a top bloke, but
He is a top bloke.
yeah, but you know, where Jose Mourinho will walk in at Spurs and he'll instantly assess the characters, and he'll go, that player needs an arm around him, that player needs the bollocking, that player is disruptive to the squad, they need to go. That player will do it for me in big moments, so I'll select him for big games. The top managers can kind of get that in their first 4 to 6 months, I would say. Particularly at a club like Chelsea, where it was a conveyor belt of managers and they had to. You know, I'll use Scolari again as an example, but he brought Deco in and already had Lampard there. I think Ballack was there when Scolari was there, I'm pretty sure.
I can't remember.
If not, that sort of generation of managers at least had all these players to kind of choose from. There seemed to be a new exciting signing every season, and Chelsea clicked straight away. You know, it's the whole thing where they get a new manager, they don't win the first season, they dominate the second season. You know, they have to, it's part of the club, they have to hit the ground running because they've got such a wealth of players to choose from.
So has Lampard gone to Chelsea too early then in his career, do you think? Has he...
He couldn't turn it down, could he? That's the one thing that I would say for him. It's kind of a poison chalice in a way. But I think all these sort of player managers, they need to earn their stripes as a manager first. I think he should have done another 2 or 3 years at Derby.
What about, I mean, his uncle is Harry Redknapp, you know, as we know. So, I mean, couldn't he lean on him for a bit of advice, or couldn't he get him involved somehow? Harry given that kind of instinct and man management and dealing with big characters, because as good a player as Frank Lampard was, I mean, I'm sure he was quite a big character, but he was never the main ego in the changing room, was he? Never in that Chelsea team. You had a lot of others in there, namely, you know, John Terry, amongst others, who would have been, you know, quietening the likes of Lampard down. And Lampard sort of just stayed in the team, got on with his job, did a fantastic job as well. But yeah, maybe he lacks a bit of that bite. I mean, what manager, right? So hypothetically, say right now, say we finished recording this video, we look at the news and Lampard's gone. Who's coming in?
For the good of Chelsea, who should go in, or who's likely to get signed? I think Thomas Tuchel's out there. Thomas Tuchel's kind of, it seems about right. But every club that he's kind of left, the board have had bad things to say about him, not as a coach, but as a person, and just how he's very disruptive. But, you know, Chelsea like disruptive managers. Conte, you know, they're all right with egos because the chances are they'll have a new manager 2 years later anyway, and 3 years later. And it's a model I don't like, but it's a model that works. It reaps some trophies. So Thomas Tuchel's a big one on the market.
Yeah, you said about
maybe they could get Harry out of retirement.
Like you said about Tuchel, about he's got, you know, bad things have been said about him having left clubs. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Leonardo at PSG. Said he's a great coach, but a difficult person.
Yeah.
So you got that to take into account. Also, someone else who's been out of work for a little while, who is used to managing at the top level, Max Allegri.
I bet you'd, if it all goes tits up with Arteta, you wouldn't mind him at Arsenal, though.
I don't know. I believe in Arteta. You heard it here first.
Fair. Well, so,
I think it's clear to see how you feel about Lampard. But you know, I mean, I think they've got to see out the season with him. I think they have, and whatever happens, it's more disruptive to get someone in now than it would be in the summer. Say, and it's let's take into account the COVID factor as well. Like, it's been a weird year.
Of course.
It's been hard for everyone. So, you know, you look at some of the other results across the league this season. Surely you've got a bit of sympathy for him.
I would say with COVID, you've got 92 clubs in the Football League that are all struggling in the same predicament as Chelsea. In terms of how it might have affected them financially, because of that transfer embargo, they had money to spend. They were one of the very few clubs that could actually spend in that summer. So they bought, it was a normal summer for Chelsea. So I don't think that's hit them particularly hard. In terms of, do I want him to get sacked? Do I think, like I was saying before, I don't like Chelsea's model. I think Chelsea's model works. I would always rather stick with a manager for a few seasons. I hate this whole modern day football thing of this lack of longevity and faith. It means that you get managers lumbered with players they didn't want. I just think it's terrible for football. What I'm saying is that I think it's ridiculous that he should get different treatment at Chelsea from Chelsea fans, even though he is a club legend, and have faith that he is going to be one of these great managers, when those same fans and that same club had no problem whatsoever sacking a World Cup winner like Big Phil Scolari, and had no qualms at all about sacking a Champions League winner like Carlo Ancelotti, had no qualms whatsoever about sacking Jose Mourinho twice. It's that kind of two-faced thing where why should Lampard, who's a less experienced manager and who might never be a great manager, but why should he get more time at a club like this?
Fair enough. I think at that point, I'm gonna go to our fun finisher. So I thought we could do a quick 11 of the best players that Frank Lampard has played with. It's going to be mostly Chelsea players, but unless you can remember some of the players he played.
Well, I'm not going to say Paolo Di Canio, am I? As a Millwall fan. So.
In goal.
It's got to be Carlo Cudicini. Peter Cech.
Cech. So Cech in goal. Okay, so defensively, let's get left back out of the way.
Bit of Cashley.
Okay, and then centre backs.
God, he's played with some really horrible people, hasn't he? For his footballing ability.
I mean, I think the obvious choice is JT, like John Terry, probably in terms of footballing ability, but also at West Ham, he would have played with Rio.
Oh, that's true. That's very true. And actually, he would have played. Well, he did play with Rio at England. I don't know if we're including his international career.
Do that.
Yeah, John Terry and Rio. I mean,
well, he would have played with City as well.
I was always a massive fan. I like a dirty player. I like a player who sort of knows the dark arts a bit, knows what the game's about. I was a massive fan of Ricardo Carvalho.
Oh, really?
Personally.
Okay.
And if you're playing John Terry, those two as a partnership were something else. Probably Rio, just because of the English bias. But
so you're saying? So we've got Cech in goal, Ashley Cole left back, John Terry and Rio centre backs.
Yeah.
Right back. I think the front runner's got to be Ivanovic, probably.
Yeah. Ivanovic, who else they have? They had Jose Basingwa. It was Ivanovic for most of that. He would have played with Zabaleta at Man City. Let's stick Ivanovic in. He was
okay. So far, it's basically Mourinho's defence, but with Rio instead of Carvalho. So centre mid. Let's say Lampard's playing the 8. Who's playing the CDM and who's playing the 10?
Well, for the CDM, it's got to be the man who has a position named after him.
The
It's got to be
Makelele role.
Lord Makelele.
Great shout. Okay, and then the 10.
Maybe not for what he did at Chelsea, but Deco, beautiful football player. You could have.
Well, he could be the 10 if you want, and you could put someone else in the 8. You know. And
Yeah. Michael Ballack. Who's still in that position. You could have Michael Essien, who is a beast of a player. I would say actually, yeah, let's put Lampard in 10. I'm gonna say Michael Essien.
Okay, Essien. You could have Gerrard for England.
Nah, I've got enough horrible people. No, sorry.
He's not that bad, is he? Right, join us next week.
It's Mac to Geezer in the pub.
Join us next week for the Gerrard rant. Right. Okay. Okay, so let's run through the team quickly so far. We've got Cech in goal, Ashley Cole left back. We've got Terry and Rio Ferdinand at centre back, and we've got Ivanovic at right back. In the 4, it's Makelele. In the 8, it's Essien. In the 10 role, central attacking midfielder, it's Frank Lampard. Now we've got a couple of wingers and a striker, and there's a lot to choose from here.
Striker hopefully picks itself. It's got to be the Drog.
Oh, ahead of Rooney.
Drogba. Who are you thinking?
Well, Rooney. He played with Rooney at England.
Okay.
He would have been at Man City with Aguero.
I'm thinking about Lampard's best performances, and I'm thinking about who got the best out of Lampard and who did Lampard get the best out of. I don't think I ever, England in those days. I know I was sort of flying the flag for Rio, but they didn't click as well as they should have. I don't look back on those days and think, wow, we were blessed to have Frank Lampard at that time. Or maybe we were, but he certainly didn't show it on the pitch.
Yeah.
And connect with those players as well. I'd say Drogba.
That's fair enough. And just a couple of wingers then, really. Left winger, right winger?
Let's go for Aaron Robin and Duff or Cole.
Well, I was just going to say, I hope you say Damien Duff, because not enough people really remember.
I love Damien Duff.
He was a great player.
But I'd say it's Duff, Cole, and Robin, and it's 2 of those, I would say.
So Duff and Robin both left-footed. Joe Cole, was he both, or was he right?
He didn't have a wrong foot. No, right-footed, I think. But
well, I think in terms of the fullbacks you've got 2 very attacking sort of wing backs. So you're probably looking at inside forwards. So you want less out and out wingers, more inside forwards who can contribute centrally. So with that in mind,
you'd have Joe Cole coming in on his right, on the left, and you'd have I think Robin just takes it.
Robin, yeah, I think you're right. Okay, so
yeah.
your Lampard 11 reads like this: Cech in goal, Ashley Cole at left back, John Terry and Rio Ferdinand centre backs, Ivanovic right back, Claude Makelele holding midfield, Michael Essien central midfield, attacking midfielders Lampard, Joe Cole on the left inside forward, Ian Robin on the right inside forward, Drogba up front. Who's your manager?
Well, I was just thinking that that's literally Jose phase 1 and Jose phase 2. It's like sort of best.
That's Rio.
Jose Mourinho. I just remembered a story actually about Claude Makelele. Do you remember what Zinedine Zidane said when Real Madrid sold Makelele and bought David Beckham?
No, go on.
There was the summer that they bought Becks in, sold Makelele, and Zidane said to the press, "Why on earth would you paint your car with a nice shiny coat of gold and sell the engine?"
Oh, that is a brilliant way to finish. I'm guessing your manager's Mourinho.
It's got to be Mourinho. Yeah.
Well, cheers, Ryan. Thanks, Ros, for clearing that up. And yeah, well, I'll see you on Sunday for EPL Weekly episode 2. Remember to like and subscribe this video. It's goodbye from me and goodbye from Ros.
See ya.